Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. We want now to start our conversation for the day. This particular morning, we are going to be talking about police reforms, a conversation that is coming just weeks after the task force that is chaired by former Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga handed over what we will call the preliminary report of what needs to be done to reform the police service. There are quite a number of recommendations, 3 key recommendations that the president has since approved. We will be talking about those recommendations and what they mean for the police service, and also the journey that the country has taken. You know, this is not a new conversation, reforming the police service. We've been here before. What have we achieved? I have a panel of 3 gentlemen. Joseph Makilap, the Member of Parliament for Baringo North. We also have in studio, thank you Mheshimiwa for creating time.
Welcome.
We also have in studio a security expert, George Musamali. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Dimas Kiprono, the Deputy Executive Director, ICJ Kenya. We are glad to have you this morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. How do you receive news like this?
It is very worrying, especially since the challenges of security in that area have happened for a very long time. We have had an operation trying to basically deal with the insecurity, but it looks like we really haven't gotten to the point where we have disincentivized the bandits, as they are so called, in terms of their economic activities. And when it comes to cattle rustling, we have not been able to disincentivize the bandits when it comes to trying to move other communities from territories that others would like to claim. Mm-hmm. So within the plethora of problems there, you find that there are issues of territorial expansion, electoral expansion sometimes, because in some areas you'd find that polling stations that belong to one community after a while changed hands. So it's a very complex issue that needs to be dealt with holistically. It's not just having security personnel present, because that area of the country is porous when it comes to small arms. Mm-hmm. And they're not really very small, actually. These are very sophisticated weapons.
Yeah, when you say small, to have the confidence and even the courage to attack a GSU camp and even ban a police station. We've seen such cases before. Yeah. That's not a small group, if you ask me.
And in the past, the so-called bandits have come into an area, destroyed schools, destroyed water systems, and actually put their cattle into classrooms, which tells you that this is not really just economic. It is actually also expansionist to some extent. Mm-hmm. And so this is a very complex issue that needs perhaps a lot more than security presence.
Yeah. Let me talk to the expert with you, Dimas. Mm-hmm. What do you suggest in terms of this change of strategy that we are talking about? We've seen these areas being termed disturbed. You know, we saw a very high-profile security, response being mounted in those regions just recently. I mean, so what do we do different?
Yes. First of all, is to encourage, to recognize that this is a very vast area. These areas we speak of, North Rift, sometimes we talk about them like we are talking about these other counties. These are very huge counties. That when you do an operation, sometimes you really don't cover the whole area. But what we can do differently, in my estimation, is perhaps an alternative justice system, where we bring together elders and stakeholders to talk. Because I remember a time when, for example, the border between Marakwet and Pokot got peace during JB Kilimo's time, because people sat down, spoke, reconciled. But to do this, you have to find the right people, the decision makers, involve everyone, and really come with clean hands in terms of what you want to achieve. It's very difficult to bring peace to an area that has a plethora of issues, some economic, some historical, some electoral, some to do with natural resources, because that area has geothermal potential. Those areas have gold. Those areas, in fact, we're not very sure what new minerals have been found in that area. And so I think alternative justice systems could be given a chance.
A few weeks ago, the task force that was mandated to discuss some of the things that need to be done to revolutionize the police service, a task force that is chaired by the former Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga, submitted the initial report to the head of state, President William Ruto, and 3 key recommendations stood out, which the head of state approved, and we'll be talking about those. But we just want to understand this journey, because it is not new. And in studio, I'm hosting a panel of 3, just to remind you. The Mheshimiwa for Baringo North, Joseph Makilapu, is with us. We have George Musamali, a security expert, and also Dimas Kiprono, the Deputy Executive Director, ICJ Kenya, is with us this morning.
Perhaps there was a moment in time when the current regime decided to look into police reform, because at that time we had come out of an election, and then the president acknowledged in front of everyone that there were units within the police that were involved in extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. And then perhaps this was also informed by the loss of those 2 Indians who came to work for the Kenya Kwanza campaign team. Another thing that was going on at that time was there was a serious issue in terms of mental health in the police service, because police officers were killing themselves and killing others in very alarming rates. I think as 2021 was beginning, by January, there were about 7 cases of murder-suicides by police officers, and this continues. In fact, I think in this month there have been about 2 already, and so perhaps there was a moment in time to look into welfare. Otherwise, the general structure has been discussed so much. We had the Philip reports, so Philip Waki, Philip Ransley, and Alston, Philip Alston. So the Ransley report was on police reform. The Waki report was on what went wrong in the post-election period in 2007, and then the other one was regarding the issues of extrajudicial killings in this country, which continue to this day. And there was a clear impetus on independence, that the Inspector General was going to be an independent person who is sourced separately by the National Police Service Commission, for example. There was an issue of human resource. The human resource would belong to the National Police Service Commission. There was an issue of oversight, which was to be done by the IPOA, Independent Policing Oversight Authorities. So we have the structures. What is apparent is that there's been lack of dedication in terms of implementation. For example, in 2014, we decided to take back the power to hire the Inspector General back to the President, which means that at the end of the day, the Inspector General is beholden to the regime, not beholden to the Constitution or the people. This we did in the guise of the Security Laws Amendment Act. So it is one of the things that remained, that the police, the Inspector General of Police would be hired. If you look at Article 245 of the Constitution regarding policing, it says that the National Executive can only give policy direction to the Inspector General, and that policy direction should be given in writing. Otherwise, operational direction is the work of the Inspector General himself. Throughout ever since we passed the new Constitution, we've seen instances where the minister is even sometimes asking the police to arrest someone or to deal with a problem in a certain way. Yes, the government is supposed to ensure the safety of life and also property, but that function has been ring-fenced to the Inspector General. We have not been following that ever since. And so what difference are we going to make in this round of reforms, especially dealing with that operational independence? However, there was the announcement by the President soon after, I think it was a year ago, that the police would be given their own vote in terms of how they can use money, the power to budget, allocate, and reallocate. Before that, it was the Ministry of Interior which was dictating how and where money was going in terms of the police. However, at the same time, the government hired an officer to sit in State House to administer that fund. So it became confusing whether that was independent being extended or extended then withdrawn. Since then, I think Okiya Omtata went to court and that appointment was found to be unconstitutional. And so how do we go back to that architecture that we were thinking, that the police, for the first time, to become professional, human rights compliant, and accountable? We have over 300 cases of police officers being prosecuted by the IPOA right now. These cases take so long, and while the case is going on, the police officer has been interdicted, which means that they are on half salary and they are not working. If we would prioritize cases involving police conduct, so that they must be heard within 2 years or 1 year, we would really save the country, because if an officer has been wrongly accused, they'd be able to go back to serve, and if they were indeed in the wrong, they would be given the sanctions that are allowed by the law. But in the meantime, can you imagine if I am a witness or the victim, and my case is taking 5, 6 years. The Willy Kimani case, which is a very famous case, took 6.5 years. We saw the father age in front of our eyes as he was attending court. So this now also goes to the judiciary. How can the judiciary deal with these cases in a manner that they end quickly, so that we can all have an accountable police service?
All right, achieved with the reforms we've discussed before. There was it in 2011 and 2012 that IPOA was established, and we had the National Police Service Commission to promote accountability. But I was looking at some unfortunate numbers, a report that was showing that the cases that have been filed against police officers have increased from 594 in 2012 to over 3,000 in 2021. And most of these cases are yet to be resolved to date.
Yes.
Are we getting worse, or are we getting better? Or
sometimes when you look at that data, it may mean that more Kenyans know that there's an avenue for complaints. So data depends on how you look at it. However, to be honest, we have improved in terms of police reforms over the last decade. Police stations are more receptive. Police stations are more sensitive to gender and age issues. So, for example, if you are going to report a sexual and gender-based violence issue, they have procedures and other things in which they can use to process you. The police have more equipment, more cars. The police are more in terms of their numbers. And so there is an improvement in terms of our investment in police reforms. And that investment was very expensive, billions. And then we have police accountability. Before IPOA, cases in which police officers were tried and then were investigated, charged, convicted, were far in between. Right now, when we talk about issues of police misconduct, we know we're talking about real things. We are not imagining. And so there is hope in terms of police reforms. What I can say is that, for example, the National Police Service Commission, in my opinion, never really appreciated their role in terms of handling human resource, because they had to be forced by the courts to actually take recruitment more seriously. There's a time IPOA took the National Police Service Commission to court because they found that the National Police Service Commission had actually donated its powers seconded the National Police Service to do recruitment. Yet recruitment is where the nitty-gritty is. It's in recruitment that you ensure a national balance in terms of who we are hiring. Mm-hmm. We know that there's a time the police even had a regional accent. Mm-hmm. They are the ones who allowed the Inspector General initially, I'm even talking about before this Inspector General, that allowed the Inspector General to just be transferring people without going through the procedure, which is the National Police Service Commission, which the Inspector General himself sits in together with his deputies. Mm-hmm. And so there are issues that have come up, others are going right. But on mental health, we really must underline that policing is a hard job. Mm-hmm. It is traumatizing in terms of the things that you have to deal with, process, internalize, sometimes even testify about. Mm-hmm. And so
we should invest heavily.
We need to invest in mental health. But all that mental health also has to do with complaints resolution mechanisms within the police. Because you can imagine if you are being victimized by your commander and you have no avenue, apart from IPOA, you have no avenue in which you can articulate your issues. And that is why we've seen a lot of breakdowns and traumatic experiences where a police officer kills their family member or another police officer and then just turns the gun on themselves.